What's up my friends, welcome back to the channel. So the Long Island iced tea is without a doubt a polarizing cocktail, right? It is bold, strong and refreshing, which some people love, while others believe it is just average and kind of a pain to make because of its 9 ingredients. You know what I like to do with these dividing cocktails? Is to play with them. That gives to those who love it another way to enjoy it, and for those who don't, an alternative that might win them over. Hopefully. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. Without further ado, let's make the craziest, the most infamous Long Island iced tea you've ever seen. Let's go. Alright, so if you've been watching my videos for a little while now, you probably know already that I've played before with the Long Island iced tea. It's been a couple of years already. I don't necessarily recommend watching the video because it's kind of embarrassing for me. I was really uncomfortable in front of the camera back then, but if you really do want to watch it, I'm gonna link it up here, but please be kind in the comments. What I've done back then was simply to make kind of a Long Island iced tea milk punch, and then I carbonated it. It was a little bit before everybody was clarifying everything, and I thought it was cool back then. I still think it is, but I also think it was the time for me to make a version 2 of this. So in a classic Long Island, the Coke is used to make kind of a float on top of the drink. It adds some flavors, but it also sinks pretty fast at the bottom and it loses its aesthetic effect. So this is the aspect I wanted to emphasize on, to play with the flow that has some Coca-Cola flavors, but also that will stay afloat all the way till the end of the drink. So at first I had the idea to make just a straight up foam with Coca-Cola, to open up a bottle of Coke, to let it go flat and then transfer that into a siphon with an emulsifier, stabilizer, and call it a day. But that was just a little bit too easy. If one of my goals with this is to win over some people who don't like the Long Island, just turning the Coke into a foam will not cut it. I'm pretty sure about that. So instead, I thought I could make a delicious cola syrup with a very unique flavor profile and then use that to make my foam. I was actually so happy with the results that I already shot another video for another cocktail using the syrup, so don't worry if you make it, I'm gonna give you more ideas to use the syrup very soon. Before we jump into the recipe, there's a couple of things I need to talk about for the ingredients. First, the Kola Nuts. It's actually the cola in Coca-Cola, and it's an African nut commonly used in beverages and traditional medicine. It's gonna give a unique flavor to your syrup, but it's also gonna give some caffeine. So if you don't want any caffeine in your syrup, skip that ingredient. It's gonna make for a slightly different syrup, but with all the other ingredients, it's still gonna make a tasty one. Now we're also gonna need some citrus zest, and when using citruses for their zest, I think it's very important to use organic citruses and to clean them very well. One of the best way to do so is simply to plunge your citruses in a large bowl of lukewarm water with about 1 teaspoon of baking soda per liter of water. Leave them there for about 5 minutes, scrubbing them thoroughly during the process, and then simply dry them with a towel. And after that, you can safely zest your citruses. Then we also gonna need some coloring caramel. This is something you can buy if you don't want to make it yourself. I personally prefer to make it, but I didn't film the process because dealing with melted sugar, hot temperature, and filming myself at the same time kind of stresses me out. But of course, the recipe and the how-to is going to be in the description below. But if you prefer a video, my friend Darcy from Art of Drink is really the best for this. So I'm going to link his video for coloring caramel as well in the description below. So now with all that being said, we can move on to the recipe. So first in a sous-vide bag, we're going to add 300 ml of filtered water, 230 grams of white granulated sugar, 100 grams of raw cane sugar, 1 gram of lime zest, 1.5 grams of orange zest, 0.5 grams of lemon zest, 1.5 grams of citric acid, 0.5 grams of malic acid, and then using a mortar and pestle, we're gonna ground our spices. First, we're gonna add 1 gram of Kola Nut, 0.5 grams of cinnamon, 0.5 grams of nutmeg, 0.3 grams of a vanilla bean sliced into and seeded, 0.4 grams of coriander seeds, 0.4 grams of Ancho pepper flakes, and 0.3 grams of sweet clover. Then we're gonna ground the spices until we get a pretty fine powder. Then we're gonna add that to our sous-vide bag. And lastly, if you're using my coloring caramel recipe, that's gonna be half a tablespoon. But if you're using the store-bought stuff, use way less, half a gram or a quarter of a teaspoon is gonna be plenty enough. Then we're gonna seal our bag and cook it for 1 hour and a half in a hot water bath set at 80 degrees Celsius. Once you're done with the cooking, immediately plunge your sous-vide bag in an ice water bath until it cools down completely. Then, using a couple of layers of cheesecloth or a very fine nut milk bag, you're gonna fine strain the syrup, bottle it up, and there you have it, your homemade cola syrup. Of course, the measurements and the method, like always, are going to be in the show notes, but this time I'm also gonna share them on Patreon, available to everyone for free. So you're gonna go and get it there. And if you wanna support the channel furthermore, you can subscribe to the Patreon page. Every month I share a cocktail ebook with the recipes and pictures of the cocktails that I shared on the channel the month before. So again, all that is gonna be in the description below. So now, as you can see, the syrup is gonna be a little bit cloudy if you filter it only once. So if you want a clearer syrup, you can filter it a couple of times through the same filter, through the sediments that were left at the bottom of the filter. That's really gonna help to have a clearer liquid. But for the foam today, it's really not necessary, so we can move on and make it. So in a blender, we're gonna add 300 ml of filtered water, 60 ml of our syrup, 2 grams of methyl cellulose, and 0.5 grams of xanthan gum. We're gonna blend at high speed for about 10 to 15 seconds. Then we're gonna pour that in a 500 ml cream whipper and charge it with an NO2 cartridge. Then we're gonna shake vigorously for about 30 seconds and place it in a fridge about 1 hour before using it. So now we have everything to make our Long Island 2.0, or I should say 3.0, because it's the second time I do such a thing on the channel. So let's make it. So we're gonna do a classic base here for the Long Island. We're gonna go with half an ounce or 15 ml of dry gin, same amount of tequila. For my own pleasure, I'm using a reposado today, but you can totally go with a blanco tequila. Next, we're gonna add our vodka, light white rum, triple sec, and half an ounce of simple syrup. Next, we're gonna add a half an ounce of lime juice and a half an ounce of lemon juice. Next, we're gonna fill the shaker with ice and shake it vigorously for 10 to 15 seconds. Then in a beautiful eyeball glass filled up with ice, we're gonna add 1.5 ounces of sparkling water, fine strain our cocktail, and top it with the foam. So there you have it, my friends, your new Long Island. Cheers. The foam provides a beautiful texture and a delicious cola-like flavor, unusual but familiar at the same time, with just enough sweetness to balance the sharp acidity of the cocktail. Also, I really like the look of the cocktail. I think it looks classy and crafty, which is really fun for a drink like the Long Island, which usually has a reputation of being like a club drink for young people to get smashed really fast. So I really love it, and I hope you're gonna love it too. So my friends, this is it for me today. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel before we go. Turn that bell if you want to make sure not to miss the next one. And until then, thank you very much again. Have a great day and see you very soon. Cheers. Between you and me, a Long Island, when made properly, freaking crushable.